Okay, would we all please stand for a moment of silence, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our Washington County Commissioners meeting. It's an honor to have you in our presence, and I'd like to officially call the meeting to order. And with that, I'd like to ask for the approval of the November 9th, 2021 minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the November 9th minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0. And as we get started here, I'm filling in for Commissioner Klein today. He had a medical situation, and he wanted to make sure that everyone knew it is not COVID related. So he's watching from home right now, but he has some medical things that he needs to attend to here early this morning. So if you're listening, Commissioner Klein, we want to say thank you. Also, like to wish Commissioner Burkett the best in his recovery. Everyone knows that he had come down with COVID, and we have prayers going out for him, and just wish him a speedy recovery. And I want to say good morning to Mr. Burkett. I'm sure he's watching. So with that, we'd ask for Commissioner reports and comments. Commissioner Kiefer?
Yes, thank you, Terry. Just a few items here. As you said, continued prayers for Commissioner Burkett, who I spoke to this morning and is doing very well, but he's still in quarantine and hopes to be back with us at our next meeting. I think he'll be back in action at the end of this week with some other events. I wanted to mention that we are in the open enrollment period for Medicare, and our Washington County Commission on Aging can be contacted if anyone has questions about what to sign up for, in particular with Medicare Part D. There are a few options. And the Washington County Commission on Aging, again, they can be reached at 301-790-0275. That was 301-790-0275. Our Washington County Commission on Aging does a great job helping the seniors in our community. And when dealing with Medicare, as you know, that can be a very complex process, very complicated to deal with, but they can help you, walk you through your options for Medicare and Medicare Part D. That's the prescription coverage option. So reach out to them if you have any questions. And I believe this is our last meeting before Thanksgiving. I know 2021 has been a rough year for many and a good year for many, but if we're sitting here, I think we all have a reason to count our blessings. For one, I just want to say thank you to our staff that does a wonderful job for us throughout the year. You truly make our job as commissioners easy. If we attend a ribbon cutting or hand down a proclamation, there's a lot of work behind the scenes to get that done, and it's our staff that does that for us to make us look good in front of the cameras, as good in front of the cameras as we can look, I suppose. But thank you, all of our Washington County staff, no matter what you do, whatever department you're in. And I know on Thanksgiving Day and the day after, we will be closed, so many staff will have off. But if you work in detention, if you work in police, 911, water and sewer, you might have to work that day. So thank you for sacrificing on the day of Thanksgiving to keep our community safe and chugging along. That's all I have.
Commissioner Wagner?
Good morning. I'll echo Commissioner Kiefer. Everybody, I hope, has a blessed and happy Thanksgiving. And we do appreciate everything everybody does throughout the community and the county. I want to thank also everybody that participated in Veterans Day events this past week. I was able to attend the courthouse wreath laying, the Vietnam Monument, and I was honored to be a guest speaker at Marty Snook as a veteran for Veterans Day. It was a very humbling experience to be able to address the veterans. I didn't get to make it, but I wanted to congratulate Zane Schreiber for his People's Choice Award this past week. I know the family well, I just couldn't be there. So, and was able to attend the 100th anniversary of the Humane Society They do a wonderful job. It was a nice turnout, and it was at the Maryland Theater, and I wish them best of luck in the future. And speaking of Maryland Theater, I see the contingency here. Jessica, I thank you personally for your donors event you had, and the theater honored my dad, and they have a little display for him, a storyboard, and one of his old projectors he ran. So I do appreciate that. That meant a lot to me. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to thank all of the veterans and all of the organizers of all of the veteran events this past Tuesday. It's pretty awesome to see the number of people that are organizing events throughout Washington County for our veterans, and then the number of veterans that participate in the ceremonies. I was able to make the veterans presentation out at Marty Snook Park, and Randy said was the guest speaker. If you ever need anyone to write a speech for you, he's the man. He did an awesome job, and just wanted to thank him for providing the keynote that day. So you did an excellent job, Randy. Thank you. Also with us today, we have a young man back here named Caden Snyder. He filed real early to run for county commissioner, and I think this is at least the second meeting that I've seen him in attendance too, and want to welcome him and thank you for attending our county commissioners meeting. Caden Snyder. So thank you. With that concludes my comments, and now we're ready for staff comments. Any staff in the chambers care to provide a report? Okay, let's go around the horn. Okay. Ms. Spence, how are you today?
My name is Linda Spence. I'm business specialist in the Department of Business Development, and I came today just to give you a quick update on the online sales framework and telework opportunity grant program that we just recently closed. Phase 2 provided for $125,164 in grants. We had 52 applications, 18 were awarded, an average of $7,500 per business in Washington County was provided. And it closed out. Checks were in the mail on Friday. So just wanted to let you know and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Any questions? No. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Good day.
Any other staff members in the chamber there that care to provide a report? Okay, we'll just go around the horn here.
Nothing this
Attorney
morning.
Downey?
Thank you.
Who wants to go first? Okay.
We have two boards and commissions requesting appointment. The Washington County Diversity and Inclusion Committee are requesting appointment of the following members to serve a first three-year term, November 1, 2021 through October 31st, 2024. That would be Orville Brown, Terrence Inwa, Troy Gandy, and Shannon Gaines. Additionally, they are requesting to reappoint Carlos Malat, Maria Wenzel, and Zuni Miller-Matama to serve first three-year term from September 1, 2021 through August 31st, 2024. And this is not a paid board.
Okay, need a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0.
I also have the Disability Advisory Committee requesting to accept the recommendation to reappoint Troy, and I'm going to try, Van Schock, S-C-O-Y-O-C, Troy to serve a first full three-year term from November 1 through October 31st, 2024. Linda Klein to serve a first three-year term retroactive from August 1st through July 31st, 2024. And they recommend the appointment of Michael Butler, Anna Burkett, Robert Welty, each to serve a first three-year term, November 1, 2021 through October 31st, 2024.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just one thing, Commissioner Kiefer already mentioned it, but There will not be a Board of County Commissioner meeting next week. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, November 30th. And as Commissioner Kiefer mentioned, I would like to also wish our staff, all the employees in Washington County, and all the citizens of Washington County a happy and blessed Thanksgiving. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, last chance for staff comments. Okay, moving right along, let's move into citizens' participation. Do we have any citizens here today that would care to participate? Please come forward, state your name, and give us your thoughts.
Good morning,
Welcome.
Commissioners.
Thank you.
I'm Jessica Green with the Historic Maryland Theater. Thanks for having us today. I hope you all are aware that we have a full season of fall and holiday events at the theater, and we are back up in action, 100% capacity, still following multiple health and safety guidelines, and having some really terrific events and performances, as some of you mentioned. So thank you for all you do for the community and to support the theater. I'm so glad I'm not wearing one of those.
I was going to say, I'm sure they have one for you.
Thank you. On that note, one of our favorite annual events is the Krumpy's annual donut drop. We would not have that event without our most important partner. Max Krumpy is here with us today. Our lead sponsor, represented by Matt South, Middletown Valley Bank, so thank you for all you do to make the event possible. And the two brainiacs behind the event, Melissa Fountain and Peter Bickford. Anything else that
I think you know each time you see us in these chambers, you're going to get donuts. So we have donuts for you today, just to say thank you for the county's support each and every year. We are in our 9th year. We just told Max he's going to have to do some real special donut for the 10th year next year. So, but for today, we have our regular individually wrapped glazed donuts for you to share.
Well, Max, there goes my keto, but I'm going to eat one. Eh? Yeah.
But I like
Said
that.
Jeff's here too. I'll give it to him later.
Yeah, that's what.
I'll give it to him
Why
next
they have
Tuesday.
holes in them. I like it.
Thank you.
And then we have plenty, again, they're individually wrapped, so folks, we hope you will come out December 31st on the square right here in downtown Hagerstown for the Middletown Valley Bank Crumpy's Donut Drop. You know, this is an early event. We drop the donut at 6:59 p.m. and we set off fireworks at 7 p.m. So we are super excited to be back in our normal capacity this year, and we hope everyone from the county comes. That's about it. But
Well, thank you, Max. I mean, you're here every year, and it's Donut Alley, something to behold anyway. So.
Well, we try. We just keep trying to make the best donuts we can, and thank you all for supporting all our adventures and events and stuff that Melissa comes up with. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
for later.
Any other citizens here that would like to participate? Okay, that concludes citizens' participation. Next, we'll move along to the certificate of recognition to Thomas Clemens, Historic District Commission volunteer. We have a certificate for him. I'd like to ask Commissioner Wagner to present. Also, Commissioner Klein asked me to relate a message to you, Mr. Clemens. Commissioner Klein wanted to say congratulations and let you know that this was some recognition that was well-deserved. I think you want to go over there, don't you?
Pleasure to present the certificate of recognition to Thomas Clemens. You can help me read this if you want. My eyes are. We sincerely appreciation of the Board of County Commissioners wish to honor you for providing over 12 years of immeasurable volunteerism. Your passion and energy for the history in Washington County are unparalleled. The dedication that you have provided to share the story of the Antietam battlefield and to further the efforts of the Historic District Commission has been selfless and has made a very tangible difference in the lives of so many throughout Washington County. Always remember, volunteers do not necessarily have the time, they just have the heart. Thank you, and we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Award the 16th day of November 2021 by the Washington County Board of County Commissioners. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we come up and get a picture with the commissioners?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I have to say, while we're waiting, it has been a pleasure working with Steve Goodrich and now Jill, Deb, and meeting Megan finally after seeing her, or hearing her for over a year. Wonderful staff, and just couldn't work with better people. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Say, the three of you want to come up and get a picture taken as well? No, you probably don't want to, but now that I've asked you, I think you have to come up.
Could I have someone go over here? Thank you. Just bounce it out. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, next will be the Commercial Vehicle Transportation Facility Acquisition and Construction. Dr. Klauber, President of the Hagerstown Community College. How are you today?
Doing great. Mr. Commissioner, glad to see you all here. And boy, I'm glad I got a donut. I was actually kind of panhandling for quarters outside before the meeting started because I didn't have any money for parking. I owe the officer out there at the front desk 25 cents, which I'll have to pay the next time I come in. But I want to talk to you just for a few minutes about our CVT program. I've talked with several of y'all. I've not been able to meet with Commissioner Wagner about it, but I want to go through kind of what we're going to do for the record. When I came to Hagerstown, the board kind of put me on notice that our CVT facility that we were renting month to month, and an arrangement we'd had for some years with AC&T and the Fultons, and it was a great relationship. We had a real good relationship with them, but we all knew that at some point in time they were going to need that space, and when they needed it, they told us they would give us plenty of notice, which they did, and we're very grateful for that. But we needed to find a new home for commercial vehicle transportation, so we kind of set up shop over at the Fairchild facility in the parking lot back there. It's not exactly desirable, but it is a temporary solution. And all the while, we really have been looking for property. We've looked at new construction, which is just enormously expensive, especially when you have to look at having a parking lot that's at least 3 acres for trucks to do your training on. So one of my board members saw the property, it used to be the old Gold's Gym over on Northern Boulevard, and pointed it out to me, and he said, you know, look, it's on 6 acres of land. You've got plenty of parking out there, and if you go out there, there is an ocean of parking on that lot. And plus, there's 41,000 square feet in the building, and he said, you know, the roof was replaced in 2017. That was, you know, and that's a big consideration when you look at renovating a department store like that, is the cost of roof replacement. So the roof was in really good shape, and he says, you really ought to take a look at that. And so the college, we purchased that property in September for about $2.75 million. And you know, if you break that down on a square footage basis, you know, it's far less than I ever could have built new. And it really is very reasonable. It's about $68 a square foot. Plus, you have all the parking. You don't have to deal with any of the environmental of building a parking lot because it's all already there. So now we've started to look about, okay, how are we going to renovate the inside of that, and how are we going to renovate that asphalt area? And looking at the size of the building, it gave me a great opportunity to consolidate all of my present off-campus facilities. You know, I've got facilities in the mall where I do GED and ESL and other workforce or non-credit training in classrooms. I'm using the place at Fairchild. I've still got some classroom space at the AC&T location for truck driving. The sheriff and you all have been very gracious. We're using the Washington Day Reporting Center for forklift training. And we use a private facility for diesel tech and, garage. So it is, everything is everywhere. And the problem is that you can't get a lot of synergies of cross-training and doing other things when everybody is spread out. When people go to the mall to get a ESL or GED class, when they finish, I like to say they disappear into the mall somewhere. I don't know where they go, but they're not getting an opportunity to get exposed to other types of training. And if I was able to put them in a location where I'm doing truck driving, forklift, and other non-credit workforce training, skills trades training, diesel tech, they're much more likely to get interested and maybe want to go into those fields if they're repetitively seeing those all the time. Plus, it enables me to not be leasing property all over the county, and be able to consolidate it in one location. Also, we've been talking a little bit with the Association of Building Contractors, and they're already looking at moving their HVAC program to HCC this spring. But we want to look at doing some partnerships with other programs there that they could do on our site. Because a person who's going through their general contractor training probably needs to get that CDLB license to know how to drive a dump truck and operate that heavy equipment on the facility. So we see a lot of good opportunities for cross-training and helping them grow their programs as well. And we can do it all in that one location. It's located on the bus line, so folks who don't have means of transportation can get there fairly easily. And we think it's really a great opportunity for the college moving forward, especially as we continue to see the huge need in skills trades training. I mean, that's kind of where it's at these days, and we want to make sure that we're meeting that need locally. So we could go through the traditional route and go and ask the state to put up its 63% or whatever it is the state gives. It changes by year to year. That would take us until fiscal year 2024 before we'd be able to get in line with the state and be able to do that. We've started talking a little bit with the Department of Commerce, and they have a grant out. It's one of the grants that's come from all the funding through COVID, Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant, or EAA, is offered through the Economic Development Administration under the Department of Commerce. It was an 80-20 grant, which would mean that, we'd have to put up 20% locally. The federal government would put up 80%. That money would be available in the before the end of this fiscal year. We could get approved for that. If we get our proposal in before the end of the year, that grant could very easily be awarded before July, and we could start work immediately on renovation of that building and the parking lots and all of that. I'd like to ask you all, I would normally go through the capital process. We went through the state route, but I would like to ask you all to consider doing $1.5 million. You could give us a commitment now, which we need for the grant. I would not need to have the funds until July 1st or some other time later once the grant was awarded. So I think that would provide us with the match that we would need. The college, we've bought the property, but we would also provide for the equipment and things like that out of our funds. But we'd leverage a lot of that federal money for the renovation. And I think it's a win-win. And as Commissioner Kiefer once said, I don't come to you unless I really need you. And this is one time I really need you. And I think that, if you look at the cost of higher education construction, new construction today is around $300 a square foot. This whole project, which would be about $6.5 million total, you're looking probably around $200 a square foot. And so, we're saving a lot of money versus building new. And building new was not a direction I wanted to go in with these programs. So I felt like we could renovate what we have. And I used to do this down in the South a good bit, where there were first-generation Walmart buildings out there that colleges could latch on to and get EDA assistance and renovate them. And I want to be able to do the same thing here with that Gold's Gym. So I submit that to you for your questions.
Jim, it's one of those things where you've really been good at getting grant money. I've seen you do it, and I'm so pleased that you're doing these skilled trades, because every night on the news almost you hear about the shortage of truck drivers and skilled trades, especially truck drivers. We're in a crisis for truck drivers right now. And with that being said, you don't own any of those properties now. You lease them, right?
We lease all of those properties right now.
Yeah, and I think I agree with what Commissioner Kiefer says. You don't come to us unless you can't. It's the best way for you to do it. So, yeah, I would be in support of it.
Dr. Klauber, I remember your first year as college president presenting to us your budget. I don't know what year that was, maybe you do, but you wiped out your capital request entirely, and I think it's been flatlined ever since. So therein lies my comments that you really come to us if it's an important project, but you recognize what's a necessity and what's not really needed for the changing environment, the changing college. As Commissioner Wagner said, our country's facing a shortage right now with qualified people that can drive truck, that can transport those loads across the country. And this is a great opportunity for HCC in Washington County too, because we are home to the national chairman of the Truckload Carriers Association, Jim Ward, who's a resident of Hancock, my hometown, is chairman of that nationwide association. So that's just another, hopefully maybe a resource, not necessarily financial, but get the word out, contact that you can have here locally for Washington County. I think it's a great skill to have. It's an in-demand job, and it's an important job, because whether we buy something from the store or we buy something online, it needs to get shipped to us more than likely from a seaport on one of our coasts into Middle America. That's just the way the economy is, unfortunately, at this moment. But even if it is produced locally, it needs to be shipped to us somehow. So I think it's a great project, very much needed, and I'd be happy to be a partner.
Okay, any other comments?
Commissioner McGee, I'll just say that obviously I met with Dr. Klauber about this, and as he mentioned, he would normally, in a normal thing, he would bring it in during our budget discussions. Obviously, what they're looking for is a commitment from the board today for $1.5 million, I believe, Doctor.
Yes, sir.
So he can apply for that, and it is a great opportunity. I've talked to Budget and Finance. This board could take $1.5 million out of capital reserves and set it aside as a commitment to this project, if that's what you'd like to do.
Does that need to be included with the motion?
It does.
Okay, so we need a motion, including the 1.5 coming out of capital.
I'd motion to approve with Dr. Klauber's request with the monies coming out of reserve capital in reserve.
I'll second that motion, $1.5 million.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0. Thank you. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you, sir. I didn't know, Commissioner Klein, he's not here to defend himself, but he did tell me that the county was looking at that building. A couple other agencies have told me they were looking at that building. So I don't know whether I should be ashamed or be proud that I swooped in and purchased that building before anybody else did.
That used to be my gym, and I'm glad you bought it, because I don't particularly want to go back to the gym again. So there you have it.
Well, beating me.
Congratulations, and you made the right decision. The next presentation of the June 30, 2021 audited financial statements. Chris Lehman. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you all?
Good.
Let's see. I do have a presentation. Let's see. I don't know if I can control it or not.
You're in control.
Ah, there we go. I don't know if this is working. There we go. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Lehman. I was the engagement partner for this year's financial statement audit for the county. And I included here the services that we were engaged to perform. Not only were we engaged to perform your annual financial statement audit, we also complete an annual single audit, which is an audit of the county's federal funding, as well as there's a couple federal Form 990s for tax-related entities related to the county. There's some other reports that are required by the state, the county's agricultural land transfer tax report. There's agreed upon procedures for the landfill calculation that we look at, fire and rescue, as well as 911 and detention center agreed upon procedures. And in completion for the audit, there's also an annual form that's required to be submitted to the state at the end of October that we review and certify. And we have reviewed and certified that on a timely basis. As well, at the completion of the single audit, there's a form that will be submitted to the federal government that'll show compliance with that audit. At a high level, we've issued a clean or unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the best opinion we could give under professional standards, and that says that the financial statements are reasonably free of material misstatement. We did not discover any instances of fraud. A financial statement audit is not a forensic audit, but we are required to have a healthy skepticism that it could be perpetrated by anyone at any time. We did not discover any material weaknesses in any of the controls that we looked at, and I have a couple slides that'll highlight the results of the controls that we've assessed. We've received the full cooperation of management, and then we had no journal entries through the process. We're still working through the single audit. The feds, or the OMB, is still putting out a addendum to their compliance supplement that will address some additional items with the CARES and the recovery money. So we're waiting for that to come out in order to finish the single audit. But at this point, we have no findings to report for the single audit. This here just shows a picture of our risk-based audit approach. I won't bore you with the gory details of how an audit's conducted, but as part of that audit, one of the key phases is we look at the environment that the county operates in, as well as what we term key controls, accounts that have significant transactions in it, payroll, disbursements and cutting checks, cash receipts, things of that nature. We assess through the control environment. And if you look here, I know it's probably hard to read, but this is our conclusion of the control environment here. And we've concluded that there's an effective environment under control, or effective environment through the audit process for the fiscal year. And then looking at the key processes, we've looked at treasury, and that looks at bank reconciliations, investment reporting for pension and OPEB and things of that nature. We look at estimates within the financial statements, the accuracy and timeliness of closing the books at the end of the year. We look at the expenditure cycle. And then in addition, we look at the payroll cycle, revenue, fixed assets, and grant compliance. And in each one of those areas, we concluded there was a adequate design and operation of those controls for the period under audit. And then the last part of the presentation, I won't read through each one of these points, but although we've issued a clean opinion, if we had problems getting through the audit, if we had disagreements with management, or if we had journal entries, or if we found suspicion of fraud, I'd be required to bring that to the commissioner's attention. And there's really nothing of a negative nature I would need to bring to your attention through the audit process. I've also included my contact information as well. That way, if there are any concerns or questions you have, outside of audit season, I make myself available not only to management, but to you all as well. Sorry, I think the thing's a little slow to react, so. But my contact information is also in the back, so. Are there any questions or comments I can address?
To summarize all that, good audit.
Yes, it's a healthy report card.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the commissioners?
thank you to you for your work and our accounting staff for the clean audit report.
Yeah.
Thank you, and
All right.
thank you, Sarah.
Well, thank you all.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, next up, FY 2021 year-end review for the general fund. Ms. Greaves. How are you today?
Good morning, wonderful. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Right, well, good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here to present to you a year-end review for the general fund. First and foremost, following the audit presentation, I'd like to take a moment to just thank my staff. You know, their knowledge and diligence throughout the entire year, and certainly the audit process impacts the results of the audit. And so thank you to the entire staff, and certainly the departments that follow our procedures and get their invoices in on time. It makes a big difference, and so thank you to county staff all involved in that process. Okay, so as you know, fiscal year 21 was an interesting year, kind of different than normal years. Due to some circumstances, we had some very large adjustments during the budget process. So you can see on the screen, we show our original budget for the year, our adjustments, $49 million, and then the final budget. Those, a majority of those adjustments, well, you can see on the screen, is related to income tax. That's $29 million. The other $20 million is related to grant adjustments. And these grant adjustments are very common and normal. We have them every year. I think 21 had a bit higher level of adjustment based on some of the federal stimulus, but that is very common to see adjustments for grants. The $29 million related to income tax is kind of the outlier. That's something we don't normally see. Next slide. So speaking about that $29 million, there were two major adjustments that occurred in fiscal year 21. One in February for $10 million, and the other in August for $19 million. Next slide. So the first adjustment for $10 million, I'd just like to remind the commissioners, this adjustment was very much needed to the county. If you recall, in fiscal year 20 and 21 budgets, there was no general fund appropriation to the capital projects fund in the budget. That was related to concerns over the revenues to support the budget. So we didn't have an appropriation to capital. This budget adjustment of $10 million kind of came in and filled that gap. So we were grateful for that. You can see that it went towards things like pavement maintenance and rehab, the public safety training facility, roof repairs that we were in desperate need of, highway equipment, funding for the Board of Education for Smithsburg roof, systemic building repairs, stormwater retrofits, and some vehicles that we were in need of. The second adjustment was for $19 million. This happened in August, and this went to three different items. One being the P25 radio infrastructure tower project for $8 million. Now, thinking about this project, it is, it was something that was unfunded. We thought the estimate of $8 million would be appropriate for the project. I am hearing feedback from the person in charge of that project leading that effort that that's probably not going to be enough as we move forward. There are some things that weren't taken into consideration for that estimate, so that is currently evolving. I would say don't be surprised if we or staff come to you at a later time to request for some additional funding for that project. And that project, with my limited knowledge, is basically to help with the interoperability of radios controls, and it's a huge project creating some redundancies to most effectively deliver public safety services. Go back real quick. The other portion of the adjustment went to the Board of Education, $4 million for future school construction. It is not designated at this time, but this is some money that was set aside for that purpose. And then certainly $7 million was appropriated to the county pension fund. This was an excellent appropriation and use of funds. In fiscal year 20, our pension funding ratio was approximately 53%. At the end of fiscal year 21, our pension funded ratio is at 68%. That is the result of that contribution as well as other investment returns that we received that significantly boosted that funded ratio. So we're very happy about that. We still look to increase that even further. The standard is to at least have 80%, I think, so we really want to get to that 80, but we're moving in the right direction, and that was an excellent use of those funds, so I appreciate that.
Sarah, if I may, just since we're on that subject, I had asked you, and you provided for us a list of where our peer counties in the state of Maryland stand, and I think that was important to know, just as a benchmark for us. We were, I believe, second from the bottom, or maybe third from the bottom in terms of our pension funding. Out of the 24 jurisdictions in Maryland, Baltimore City being counted as a county, like the other 23 counties. And that was surprising that quite honestly, for years, this board management didn't bring that to our attention, didn't focus on that leadership at this board. So that was so important, I think. And what's our funding percentage now?
About 68%.
68%.
Yeah.
So that really bumped us up. It should have been done a long time ago, but
It's a phenomenal result, and I thank you as commissioners for taking that step. Sometimes it's not always fun to appropriate funds to pension, but obviously you recognize the need there, and so
that was a big deal.
Absolutely critical. Yep, thank you.
And I appreciate, obviously, we talked about that. I do appreciate the commissioners taking that step. And, as you both mentioned, there's still some work to do there. So staff will be looking at that and trying to have some more recommendations for the board to do that as we move forward. We hope that the investments will still continue to grow. They probably will not grow at the rate they did this past year.
Right.
But yeah, it's.
You don't know how bad that number was until you see us ranked against our other counties.
That's right.
Second
That's
from the
right.
bottom.
That was one of the first things I saw when and it's like we've got to take it. So the board, I really do appreciate you took action on that when we needed to.
Weren't we like 52%? Now you said we're 68. I didn't think it bumped it quite that far.
That's correct.
And the optimum range would be where we'd like to see ourselves be fairly healthy would be what percent?
I would say 80% would be recognized as a healthy ratio.
Right, so that $7 million we put in, that didn't bump it up completely. The investments were really good this past year, so we hope they still will be, and I think it'll be a reduced rate. So it'll take us a little longer, but
that's right.
But yeah, you're right. When you look at it compared to our peers, when you ask that question,
I would say
it's a great move. So we're really moving in the right direction with that. But we'll continue to do that, and some of the other things as well. You mentioned the radio project. We don't know what that number is, but the $8 million is a very good start towards that project, so we appreciate that as well.
That's right, yeah. Thank you. Next slide, please. So I think really important to the discussion is, what contributed to these income tax adjustments of $29 million that we mentioned. So first and foremost, I think it's really important to recognize as we went into the 21 budget, we did so with the mindset of uncertainty as we moved through the COVID-19 pandemic. So recently, the commissioners had changed the tax rate to 3.2%. Then the pandemic hit. And so there was a lot of concern over how would this really impact the county, and let's not increase our budget for things that we need. Let's take a year and not do some of those things and see where we're at. So I think, the basis for the budget needs to be taken into consideration as we think about why we had so many adjustments. So that's number one. The second thing is, we need to recognize that income tax on unemployment was distributed to the county. The governor's office, the governor made the decision to not tax unemployment, but we had already been distributed that income tax. So I think that's something important to consider too. Early estimates in the fiscal note that came out in January were close to $5 million. However, subsequently, the state continued to tax unemployment and did not change their methodology. So it could be more than $5 million that we've been over-distributed. It's very difficult to figure that number out. I have inquired with the state, but I've been unable to get a response that really details what that number could be and when it will impact our distributions. It is a question that I've had out there. Third, it's important to understand that, pass-through entities were allowed to change how they submitted their tax payments, and there was a surge of payments from the state to the county in the last quarter of 2020, which actually came into us in February of 2021. So This change at the state level could be a structural change that we see in our income tax distributions as we move forward. Prior to that, we may have seen smaller tax payments in quarterly distributions, but now we have a large one in February that we never really had before. So the state anticipates that trend to probably continue, and that'll just change the timing of payments, but not necessarily the amount that we get. So I think that's important to note because we had a much larger distribution in February than anticipated. And again, as it relates to the budget discussion I mentioned earlier about a lower budget, the disparity grant that we received at a 3.2% income tax rate was about $6.5 million more than what we had received previously in previous years. And so the impact of that is also part of the variance that we see from actual to budget. Next slide. All right, so when we talk about fiscal year 21, I wanted to talk about some of those adjustments first because as we think about the budget, the revenues, the expenditures, and the actuals, that $29 million was a budget adjustment. Okay, so even though it was different from the original budget, it's important to note and it impacts these numbers a little bit. So I just wanted to go over that briefly before we got into what you'll see on the statements, which are the numbers in front of you. So this is for the general fund, revenues of $294, well, let's round it, $295 million, expenditures of $289.4 million with a net of $5.6 million. This net of $5.6 million did go into general fund reserves. As you know, our reserves percentage is based on general fund revenue. So as we increase our revenue, we have to increase our reserves to at least maintain the same percentage of reserves. Next slide. So if you see on this slide, you'll see fiscal year 20 reserves were at $52.3 million or 20.5%. And we ended fiscal year 21 with $57.7 million or 21.1%. So you can see it increased about 0.5% for that $5.6 million. Next slide. So how do we get to that 5.6? What contributed to that? Personal property tax was over budget by $1.3 million. This was not real property tax, but personal property tax on business. Income tax, $1.8 million. So when we see that income tax number, keep in mind we had those adjustments of the $29 million. And then this was not an adjustment. This was over above those adjustments, so $1.8 million there. Recordation tax of $5 million. The recordation tax is something that, was very surprising. In the past, we've gotten probably $6 to $7 million in recordation tax, and in fiscal year 21, we got $11 million. So that was considerably more, almost double our budget. I think that's very important to understand because I don't think that's a recurring revenue source. I do expect that to reduce next year or in the current year. And then other miscellaneous items for a negative $700,000 to come to our $7.4 million revenues that were over budget. If we go to the next slide, just like revenues are significant to the end net result for the year, expenditures are also. So, revenues being over budget and expenditures being under budget both contribute to the net result for the year. So you see that top one there, transfer to capital, $9 million. I came in here and I requested the commissioners make an adjustment and transfer $9 million at the end of the year based on where our revenues had landed. Commissioner Kiefer mentioned having a discussion related to that $9 million when I came back to do this year-end presentation, which we'll get to in the next couple slides. But I think that's important. And, that was just a transfer, so we didn't do a budget adjustment for that. So that is why it's on this screen and it wasn't on the budget adjustment screen that we talked about earlier. Wage savings of $1.4 million, primarily related to vacancies that we've had. We have had vacancies, especially in detention, patrol, and highway. In fiscal year 21, so that contributes to that number. Benefit savings related to health insurance, workers' comp. As the commissioners know, we are self-insured for both workers' comp and health insurance. We bear the full liability of those programs that we offer. So they did come under budget. Some of the reasons for that coming under budget would be also contributing from the vacancies. Okay, so if we don't have those positions filled, they're not incurring medical expenditures. Also, we continue to see, more telework this year as the pandemic has continued, and certainly certain delays of procedures. Operating savings of about $1.5 million across all department operations in the general fund, and then just a miscellaneous $500,000 there to total our $1.8 million. It's, over budget because of the $9 million, but generally we had about $7 million in savings from expenditures for the year. Next slide. So, as we move forward, just some things to consider. We do have upcoming the SAFER grant, which we have for a 3-year period. We got that for the first time in fiscal year 21 for the firefighters. So that will provide reimbursement to us through 24 or part of 24, and then the county will be responsible for paying for those wages. We have seen impacts on our capital budgets already. I assume as we progress into the budget season for capital, we will be seeing some of our early estimates for those projects increase based on inflation and availability of materials.
Excuse me a minute, Sarah, what do you usually plug in there for inflation? You're plugging in 6%? Is that what you're doing?
No,
right
we
now?
normally plug in about 2% per year.
That's what I mean, but we're plugging in 6% now?
We'll have to adjust our numbers, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I've already become aware of certain projects that are more expensive projects, such as the capacity management project. I've talked to Mark Bradshaw on that project, and, that could come in $2 to $5 million more than what we have estimated. And so, we need to be prepared for some adjustments.
But this increase of 6% now, will that cover what we've already agreed to? It's going to be a higher price, or?
What's going to have to happen is as the departments fill out their capital budget requests, they will modify those amounts based on current trends and costs that they anticipate. And you know what? If their project doesn't start for 5 years, there is some, projection for that that they'll have to make. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
I guess, as we move forward, I would just not be surprised as commissioners if a project is costing 30% more than it did in fiscal year 22's capital budget. In addition to that, we've talked about minimum wage increasing to $15 an hour by 2025. I was able to get a listing of some infrastructure maintenance from Mr. Eshelman related to some projects that we have here in the county that need some attention. That was about, I think, $6 million of level 1 and 2 projects that needed to be addressed. And certainly something to consider is the public safety build out for the training center. We do have a portion of that project almost completed. It's expected to be completed in the spring. But there are other portions of that project that I do believe are on the radar for DES and the commissioners. So that's something to consider. Next slide, please. So the last slide, I'd like to talk about the $9 million that was transferred into CIP for fiscal year 21. We did listen to Dr. Klauber, who was here this morning, about the $1.5 million. So this is, that's an excellent use of these funds. You can see that some of the suggestions for the use of these funds would be to contribute it to the pension, capital projects, as you did a little while ago, any deferred maintenance, and then the other possibility is to reduce debt for 22 or 23. So when I say that, we generally as a county issue about $12 million in debt per year. You could say, okay, well, we're going to issue 10 million and we're going to use 2 million of that to fill the gap so we can continue to do the projects that we need to do. So those are some suggestions for the commissioners. I'd like to, certainly, I'm here if you have any questions about the presentation or anything further that you want to talk about.
Commissioners?
Sarah, what kind of timeline are you on in terms of receiving our suggestions for the slide right before that?
The commissioners can take the time that they need. There is no, the beauty of the funding being in the capital projects fund is it'll remain there until you allocate it. Staff will not allocate it without your knowledge. You don't have to allocate it all today. You can wait until 5 board members are here. You have had time to discuss that.
I know something that I hear is important around the county when it comes to emergency services is the apparatus fleet replacement. I know that was in our CIP budget a couple years ago. It was kind of, whittled away and down to nothing. And I know we had talked about possibly using some ARPA funding, or maybe we could use this funding. That to me would be a priority. What funding source we use, I think is indifferent. But to bring back the apparatus fleet replacement, I think is a priority in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
That's a big deal right now.
This is the reserve fleet that we're talking about.
Yes.
We could get some estimates about, what.
We can, yeah.
What amount would be the proper amount to do that, I think.
Okay. Sure. Any other?
No, our bond rating is AA+,
Double
right?
A+, yes.
Is that where it stops?
It stops at AAA. The county, Washington County, does not have the wages or economy to generate a AAA. I think that that's something that, we can always strive for as a county, but we should be very, very proud of our AA+ rating. We continue to work towards a AAA. Things that would help with that is, increasing of reserves or, any type of financial flexibility, those types of things. But it would not shock me if Washington County couldn't get a AAA because of our economy.
So in layman's terms, not layman's terms, what's that do for us? Is it a better interest rate maybe?
It is a better interest rate on our bond issuance. So that can contribute to hundreds of $1,000s of savings over time for our interest on our debt. So it does contribute. A AA+ is an excellent rating for us. A AAA may offer us a slightly reduced rate moving forward, yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
I know this is something that Commissioner Burkett has asked about, and if he's at home listening, I'm sure this is on his mind. The monies that may need to be paid back for the unemployment taxes that was originally taxable, then not taxable. Do we need to set that money aside, or are we prepared in another way to pay that when that bill comes due? Will it be a bill that's sent to us, or will they just reduce our future allotments? How will we have to pay that back, and do we need to prepare for that?
Generally, it will not be a bill that's sent to us. Generally, they will distribute less money to the county. They have in the past worked out payment arrangements for circumstances that arise, such as this. So, they may do something like that. So I'm not sure at the time. I don't want to say, oh yeah, we should definitely hold that $5 million aside because it's going to be due in fiscal year 22 or 23. They may have a longer payback period. They may, and the county may be able to absorb it in our annual distributions if it's not a huge impact. And so I think we need to wait to gather some more information from the state on that. But I think it's good that we're thinking about it and we want to be aware of that. And certainly if the commissioners want to segregate some of the reserve that is in capital for potential shortfall in future years due to the distribution being reduced, that's something that you could do. We could keep it in reserves, but we could basically commit it temporarily, if that's something that you wanted to consider.
I don't think we need to make a decision today, but
no.
it sounds like we might have a little bit of luxury of time on our side.
I think so. The last time I reached out to the state, it just seemed that they were not in a position
They're not in a hurry.
That's right. They're not in a position to talk about it right now, so.
Right, and we just don't know. So, like I said, we don't need to make the decision today, but, maybe that, we set some of it aside. Just, like I said, they probably won't send us a bill. They may, but they probably won't. But that, withholding some of our distribution may have an effect on us moving forward. So
That's
having
right.
that money aside to make up for that, if it's a little bit less, I think that
That's right.
That's probably, a good way to go, but we just don't know.
And the important thing there is that, as long as we maintain our healthy reserve, we'll be in a position financially to weather that type of distribution adjustment. So I think that's important.
One other comment I might have on your slide for upcoming expenditures. There's some silver linings in a few of those items as well. Just looking at the, not that I'm a proponent in any way of the minimum wage increase to $15 an hour, but I know our organization has looked at, do we compress the wage scale or do we grow our entire wage scale to combat the higher minimum wage? And I'm sure every other company out there, every other organization, nonprofit, for-profit that pays a wage is probably looking at that very same reality. So although that expense may increase for us, remember that our tax base, I think, would grow proportionally as well. Whatever our local economy does, our local wage payers do, if they increase their wages over time, that we're taxing a higher amount. So that could bring in more income tax revenue as well. So, that's a double-edged sword for sure, but maybe one that balances out at the end of the day. And, inflation is a killer right now. It's horrible. We see it in everything. Not that the housing market will always continue in an upward trend. We know it goes up and down. But if we're paying more to build our buildings and our capital projects, probably means the value of new homes being built will be valued at a higher rate as well. So I think everything would grow in tandem. So there might be some silver linings with our upcoming expenditures. Not that it's necessarily all bad, but it's just something to think about, and I'm sure you have.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, any other comments, thoughts?
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
The next will be the Performance Incentive Grant. Approval to submit application and accept funding as awarded. Souders and how are you two today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm getting out of here.
Good morning. Rachel Souter, Senior Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management, and Megan Willis from the Washington County Sheriff's Office Day Reporting Center. We are here because the Day Reporting Center is requesting approval to submit an application to the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services for Performance Incentive Grant funding under the Justice Reinvestment Act in the amount of $118,038.55 and to accept funding as awarded. The Day Reporting Center supports the main goals of reducing Maryland's local incarcerated population in Washington County through appropriate diversion, deflection, service provision, and recidivism reduction resources. Specifically, the targeted goal for this project is reducing recidivism by addressing services at the Day Reporting Center and alternative to incarceration. Within this project, services for justice-involved individuals in need of behavioral health programming and incarcerated parents will be addressed. The Office of Grant Management has reviewed the application and program guidelines. The funding period is for 6 months, starting January 1st and ending June 30th, 2022, and there's no match requirement associated with the agreement. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, no questions? Need a motion to approve as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good luck. Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, NTG-21-0071, one Kohler 250 kilowatt diesel generator. Mark Bradshaw and Mr. Curry. How are you two today?
Morning,
Morning,
Commissioners.
Commissioners.
Morning.
Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Mark Bradshaw, Director of Environmental Management.
Subject before you this morning is Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG 21-0071, for one Kohler 250 kilowatt diesel generator. Recommended motion moved by resolution for Department of Water Quality to purchase one Kohler 250 kilowatt generator set from Fidelity Power Systems of Sparks, Maryland, an amount of $55,050, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract that was awarded by Sourcewell. You can see the contract number listed in the ARF. The Code of Public Laws does allow for this board to participate in procurements that were solicited by other jurisdictions, as long as we can show there was administrative efficiencies, and which we can, because we will be eliminating the bidding process for writing a spec and evaluating and awarding. And also you can see the funds are budgeted in the department CIP, and also there's a quote attached from Fidelity along with the ARF. Are there any questions?
Any questions? If none, need a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, intergovernmental cooperative purchase, Public Safety Training Center furniture and fitness equipment, Mr. Curry and Mr. Lewis and Mr. Hobbs. Wow.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Good morning, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering.
Welcome.
Subject is Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, INTG 21-00772, Public Safety Training Center furniture and fitness equipment. Move to authorize a resolution for approval of the purchase of office furniture at the contracted unit prices totaling $406,732.58, and to utilize another jurisdiction contract that was awarded by Howard County Department of County Administration, contract number 2015-42 to Duron Incorporated of OE Mills, Maryland, and to approve of the purchase of fitness equipment at the contracted unit prices totaling $86,713.90, and to utilize another jurisdiction contract that was awarded by the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, contract number 44009698 to Johnson Health Tech North America Incorporated, doing business as Matrix Fitness of Cottage Grove, Wisconsin, as listed in the attached spreadsheet, and to approve a budget transfer in an amount of $495,000 to cover the cost of the furniture and equipment. The Code of Public Laws does allow for this board to participate in this acquisition of furniture and equipment. The savings will be because we didn't have to prepare a RFP document or to do the evaluation. The budget transfer is also attached for your approval, and also the price listing from the various contracts is also attached in a spreadsheet showing all the prices. Are there any questions?
Any questions, commissioners? So this is for furniture and fitness equipment.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. Okay.
Is that like the final amount of furniture, or will there be ongoing?
It should be, and I'll touch. I think for the majority of it, it's going to probably be 95% of it. The only thing that might change a little bit is associated with some of the additional technology, and especially the multi-purpose and the simulation lab, because of lecterns and a couple other things. But what you see in this package incorporates all of this stuff necessary for all the classrooms, the potential future emergency operations center, and basically all the rooms, all the office spaces, the kitchen spaces, and everything throughout the entire facility.
Just out of curiosity, since we're piggybacking off of the Howard County contract, are we getting Howard County's quantities of like chairs and desks, or are we getting what we need for our unique space?
So you're getting specifically what's been defined for each space.
Okay.
And stuff like that, and for the purpose of each room that it's going into. You're basically just getting their price reductions, their percentages in reductions of the cost of the retail equipment.
Okay.
The good thing about this particular contract, is a good point you brought up, is that it was priced out that each item was individually priced, so you can pick and choose as you need it, as not buying as a group as what they already approved.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, unit prices, and we also checked other contracts to see if this was the largest cost savings that we could find with this grouping of furniture and fitness equipment.
Is the furniture, will it be available in time? I know we recently went to purchase a sofa, and after 6 months, we went somewhere else of just waiting, and we were able to get a refund. But
With our
Do we
current
have a supply
schedule,
issue with furniture?
with our current schedule of spring of this year to open up right now, we're on schedule to receive the furniture and equipment in time for the building opening in the late spring.
My 1 month wait turned into 6 months before we canceled, so I just wanted to make sure we have something to sit on when we,
That's
after we
why
cut the ribbon.
That's why we're here now, here in the
Yeah.
fall, so that when the spring comes, we'll have enough time to make the order.
You're getting a jump on it.
Well, that and anticipating any future cost increases has been estimated with the suppliers that they're gonna see probably in January and due to the timing of the delivery.
Yeah, that's a good point. Inflation's gonna tear into that too. We're locked in at this price.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, sole source procurement, Microsoft Office 365 licensing. Mr. Curry and Mr. O'Neill.
Again, Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing.
Joshua O'Neill, Division Director of Information Systems.
Sole Source Procurement PUR 1525, Microsoft Office 365 license. Move to authorize the sole source procurement for licensing of agreement for a total of $186,586.66 from Software House International of Somerset, New Jersey, based on a quote dated November 3rd, 2021. We received this request, and the department wishes to use sections 1 and 2 of the Code 106.2, the Code of Public Laws, where it reads that is authorized and permissible only when one source exists that meets the county's requirement, and second, the compatibility of equipment and accessories, replacement parts is a paramount consideration. This was a 36-month agreement that was signed back in 2020. It's being brought before the board today, so that it's on record, so that in the third year, the department would have to budget also for that year and bring that recommendation back into the board for approval. Also, this will be notice of 10 days approved. As contracts is approved, it will be within 10 days advertised in the newspaper, notifying the vendors and everyone in the public what was the board's decision. Funds are in the department's budget, as you can see, and also there's a quote attached from SHI. Are there any questions?
Any questions, commissioners? None, a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0. Okay, next, contract award for gasoline and diesel fuel deliveries, Brandy Noggle. Mr. Rowe.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brandy Nagelbauer in the Purchasing Department. The first recommendation I have for you this morning is the contract award PUR 1519 gasoline and diesel fuel deliveries. Move to award the contracts for gasoline and diesel fuel tank wagon and transport load deliveries under option number 1 for separate contracts to the responsible bidders with the lowest, who submitted the lowest bid price. The contract for gasoline tank wagon and diesel tank wagon deliveries are being recommended for award to AC&T out of Hagerstown, Maryland. The gasoline transport deliveries and the diesel transport deliveries are being recommended for Petroleum Traders out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. The following tabulation listed below were made from the bids received on October 20th, 2021. I'm sorry, in there it says 2020. Based on the estimated quantities for the contract period, it is tentatively to begin December 1st, ending November 30th of 2022. The contract is for a one-year period with no option to renew. These requirements for, this is a requirements contract, and the county doesn't guarantee a minimum or maximum quantity on this contract. The bids were advertised on the e-Maryland Marketplace website, the county's website, and the local newspaper. 26 companies downloaded the bid document, and we did receive 5 bids, one of which was a no bid. The contract requirements also include the City of Hagerstown, Washington County Public Schools, and Hagerstown Community College. And these agencies will make their own formal contract award. Funding is available in various departments for the purchase of fuel.
Okay, any questions, Commissioner? If none, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, next, bid award, swimming pool and water wastewater treatment chemicals. Ms. Noggle?
Randy Nagelmeyer in the Purchasing Department.
Mark Bradshaw, Director of Environmental Management.
The last bid recommendation I have for you is for the bid award 1520, swimming pool and water wastewater treatment chemicals. Move to award the bids for swimming pool and water wastewater treatment chemicals to the responsible bidders with the lowest price for each item as indicated in the agenda report form. The county accepted bids on October 20th, 2021 for the swimming pool and water and wastewater treatment chemicals for county departments as well as the city of Hagerstown and the town of Boonesboro. The bids were advertised on the State of Maryland's eMaryland Marketplace website, the county's webpage, and the local newspaper. 38 companies downloaded the bid document, 15 bids were received. The term of the contract is for a one-year period, tentatively to begin December 1st, 2021, ending November 30th, 2022, with no option to renew. These recommendations are for the county requirements only. The city and the town of Boonesboro will make their own separate award. Funding is available in various accounts for the Department of Water Quality as well as Parks and Recreation Department.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? If none, motion to approve is presented.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, budget adjustment, Hangar 21 vestibule. Mr. Hobbs, Mr. Johnson, welcome.
Good morning again. Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering.
Rick Johnson, Airport Director.
And we are here to recommend that the board approve a budget transfer to the Hangar 21 vestibule project and move money from the airport reserves. We're requesting additional funds due to increase in material costs, not anticipating the original budget. The project involves construction of an entry vestibule and stairs to the north side of Hangar 21 to provide public access to the first and second floor. The stairs will provide safe public access to the second floor offices to expand Royal Aircraft and provide other potential business office space. The project has encountered complications because of COVID-19 pandemic, is now scheduled to be substantially complete by the end of the year. As mentioned, the funds would be transferred from airport reserves to BLD 099. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? 3-0.
Thank you.
Dave Hayes here. Huh?
Send him a message. He should be gone.
Okay, is Larry here? Okay, we'll move down to the pay scale adjustments, State of Maryland minimum wage and targeted part-time employee position differentials. Mr. Etchison, how are you this morning?
I'm wonderful. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So I have two actions for a motion today for the pay scale adjustments to reflect the State of Maryland minimum wage increase and a targeted part-time employee position differential. Let me go into the State of Maryland minimum wage increase. Effective January 1, 2022, the minimum wage in Maryland will go from $11.75 to $12.50. That has an effect on 109 of our 316 part-time employees. None of our full-time employees are affected by that change. In order to be in compliance then with the minimum wage adjustment, looking at the current pay scale, you can see that we've blacked out before some boxes that started to fall under the minimum wage. The proposal then is to continue to black out boxes that would be at or under, or statistically at or under the new $12.50 minimum wage, move any and all part-time employees that would be in their particular grade, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, to that minimum, and that would be the new starting salary. So when you make that change, again, we have 103 employees that would be moved up to the green indicated areas that you see in the ARF, and that would take effect on pay ending date January 7th. It would actually start on Christmas. That's just how our pays go, so that would start on Christmas. That is part one. Part two then is the targeted part-time employee position differentials. As you're all aware in some of the conversations earlier, we are experiencing very high pressure on part-time positions, especially in the 4 areas indicated: Parks and Recreation, Black Rock Golf Course, Hagerstown Regional Airport, and our transit. If you take a look on Indeed, which I did yesterday, I found dozens of similar positions, all part-time, either drivers or part-time positions, again, only requiring high school diploma or GED, all of which we're paying far more. Those pressures are really starting to give us true challenges in recruiting and retention in those 4 areas. That combined with the fact that this has been one of the most biggest anomaly I've ever seen in labor and wages in my lifetime. I'm sure it's probably the same for you all, where the traditional items just don't seem to be working based off of fear of COVID, stimulus, and even more stimulus. So we have a shortage of labor, and then the escalation of wage pressures based off of that shortage of labor is putting us in a really tough spot for our part-time employees. Of those 360 part-time employees, approximately 316 part-time employees, 252 would be eligible for these position differentials. Many of you probably know about a shift differential. Somebody works second shift, they get an automatic more. If they work third shift, they do. This is a position differential. Why I'm proposing this is I want to come back to you all before fiscal FY23 and really propose a part-time pay scale. I think it's something that Commissioner Kiefer was talking about. As that wage keeps going up, especially at the bottom, minimum wage, we've got to break out the part-time into their own scale so that we can really address that issue in conjunction with potentially addressing the full-time issue. The reason I'm proposing that is our full-time employees, if you take their base salary, multiply it by 64%, that's the true cost of compensation. When you look at our part-time, it's roughly by the teens. So a full-time employee basically costs 1.5 times a part-time employee. So by doing this position differential now, we can put some targeted money on the wages for those part-time positions that we are struggling to both recruit and retain. It's the most cost-effective manner to do it. Looking apples to apples for the exact number of hours we worked in the past year, it would be $165,000. However, that would be approximately cut in half for the remainder of this fiscal year, which would be roughly $83,000, which could come from the $3.4 million operating reserves. By using that position differential, we can make the correction we need to make now for those critical positions, give us the opportunity to see if this Build Back Better program, whatever it is that may be coming out, and other social stimulus and other inflationary issues, what they're going to have in the labor market, I would be able to come in front of you well before then for the fiscal year 23 with a very viable program on how we can move forward. So this is really a phase 1 approach so that we can address these critical shortages, especially as we go into either one of those 4 areas.
Larry, a quick question here.
Yes, sir.
On Parks, Recreation, Black Rock, Hagerstown Regional Airport, and Transit, are all those directors and staff in concurrence with your, do you consult them? Are they involved in this?
Absolutely. They're all in the concurrence. I had meetings with all of them. Andrew, I have emails and concurrences with everybody of the directors for all of them. They're listed on the ARF as concurrences because they truly are. Had a great meeting with our county executive and the CFO as well before even getting with them. They were all in concurrence with this action as well.
Okay. Commissioner, they're all here today.
Yeah.
I don't
see any of them running for the microphone, so I guess that's.
But if you have any specific questions for them. Yeah. We've talked about this, before about, we were talking about Parks and Rec, and we were talking about some of those things back in the spring and into the summer about how difficult it was to find part-time people to do those jobs, and the board has discussed that a little bit. So this was something that we thought, hopefully can be helpful in that situation. On the other issue, we have a minimum wage, and we're going to have that each year. So, we're talking about that, and I think even Commissioner Kiefer sort of referenced this earlier about what we do with the scale, because right now, what we're proposing today will get us through this part of it. But we're going to have to look at our entire scale, because if you keep compressing it, that may be something we don't want to do. We may want to bump it up, but that's a bigger discussion. But right now, I mean, that's what we're talking about, so we can be in compliance come January 1.
I do know we're having a terrible time with part-time hiring and getting some adequate people. It's sort of a nightmare right now.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge for all employers, not just ours.
Right,
but
right.
this only moves us into the bottom of the second quartile. We're right now way down in the first quartile. First and second are below your midpoint, basically your average in the area. Third and fourth are higher. This gets us in a competitive spot. This I think will take the heat out of a hot kitchen until we can come back forward, as the county executive has said, and really taking a very comprehensive look both at the full-time, and my proposal is to bring forth to you a part-time pay schedule, because there are differences in total compensation between the two and differences in variability, and the type of positions that we primarily have with part-time, as you can see, over 100 of them are affected just by the minimum wage. So we have a fair amount of employees that are at the fairly low end of the scale, but necessary for county government to service our taxpayers and citizens.
Larry, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
What are the benefits afforded to our part-time employees? And I would assume some of these may be even seasonal employees that wouldn't necessarily receive.
Right. The only benefits we have are the requirements by the state for the time off.
Okay. And our Hagerstown Regional Airport acts as an enterprise fund. And it's been self-sustaining the last couple of years. I'm wondering if this is built into the airport's budget, will it still be self-sustaining? So it'll pay for itself through the airport operations? Okay. And what about Black Rock Golf Course? I know that's an enterprise fund as well that hasn't been self-sustaining for the last couple of years. The county taxpayers subsidize it pretty heavily. We never got around to meeting with our golf board to get a synopsis of the financials. Just wondering if we can get that done soon, but also, how much, what's the additional cost that then
That's
we will have
actually
to subsidize?
that's actually one of the most minimal. I don't have the exact number for you. I apologize for that. But that's one of the most minimal only because of the number of employees. That's one of the most minimal issues there where that would be. So that, I think it's not going to be very much, quite candidly, because just of the head count numbers.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Motion to approve?
I'd motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
very well.
Thank you, Larry.